Good morning. Today, Alexander and I are going to read the book Curious George and the Dump Truck, written and illustrated by Margaret Rays. Alexander, what do you love about Curious George books?
That George always makes a problem and he fixes it.
I like that about Curious George books too, that there's always a problem and then George solves it. I also love how they take place in different settings. Alexander, what do you think the setting of this book is?
The park.
And how did you figure out that the setting is the park? What did you see?
Because there's ducks.
Because there's ducks. And do you see ducks when you go to the park? Yeah. I see some other clues too. I see lots of grass and
trees, a pond,
lots of space for people to run around. Yep, and fly kites, which is a great activity to do at the park. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. This morning, George was playing when he heard a funny noise outside his window. And you can see how the illustrator drew little lines to show that there was a noise. It sounded like a quack. Alexander, can you make the quacking sound for me?
Quack.
George was curious what could be quacking underneath his window. It was a duck, of course. Then George heard another quack and another. Why, it was not just one duck. It was a mother duck and her 5 small ducklings. Ducklings were something new to George. How funny they were. He watched the ducklings waddle after their mother. Where were they going? George was not curious for long. Soon he was waddling after Mother Duck too. Now he could see where they're going. And if you look carefully in the picture, there's a sign. Alexander, what does the sign say?
Park.
Park. They're going to the park.
And there's an arrow
pointing to the park, that's right. The ducks waddled all the way to the park. George loved the park. Today he saw children flying kites and gardeners planting trees by the pond. Then George saw something he had never seen in the park before. What does he see?
A dump truck.
It was a dump truck, and it was big. In fact, George was not even as tall as one wheel. George forgot all about the ducklings and stopped to take a look. It would be fun to sit in such a big truck, thought George. No one was inside the truck, and now the window was wide open. George could not resist. Alexander, do you think it's a good idea for George to go inside the truck?
No, because he'll ruin the whole park.
So you
Because he doesn't know how to drive, and the truck is so big. So it might knock down trees.
I agree with your opinion. I don't think it's a good idea for him to go in there because it is so big. But sitting in a big truck was not so fun for a little monkey after all. George could not even see out the window. He was too short. He was too small. If only there was something to climb on. Would this make a good step for a monkey? Oh no, Alexander, what do you think's gonna happen? Look, what is he stepping on?
The moving.
The gears that
start up the truck to move.
So do you think that's a good idea to step on that?
No.
Oh, but it did. Now George could see out the window. He saw grass, trees, and a family eating a picnic. Suddenly, George heard a low rumbling sound. What do you think it sounded? What do you think the rumbling sound sounded like?
The engine of the truck.
The engine. Was it his stomach rumbling? He wondered. It had been a long time since breakfast. But the rumbling was not coming from George's stomach. It was coming from the back of the truck. George was curious. He climbed out the window. Then, like only a monkey can, he swung up to the top of the truck. Now he could take a look. He saw the truck was filled with dirt. George was excited. What could be better than a truck full of dirt? George, that's right. George jumped right in the middle of it. Sitting on top of the dirt, George felt the truck bed begin to tilt. Let's pretend our hands are the truck, and let's tilt. What happens when the truck tilts? What's going to happen to all the dirt inside?
It's going to fall into the pond.
It tilted higher and higher. The dirt began to slide. It was sliding right into the pond, and George slid with it. George was having fun. Does this look fun to you?
Yes.
But the pile in the pond got bigger and bigger and bigger, and soon the fun was gone. Just then the gardeners came back from lunch and stood with their mouths wide open. What do you think the gardeners are feeling?
Surprised.
Surprised? Why do you think they're surprised?
Cause the dirt went into the pond.
And the way in their expression too, look at their face. It says their mouths are wide open, and that's a surprised face. They saw the empty dump truck, the pile of dirt in the pond, and a very muddy monkey. They knew just what had happened. But before they could say a word, George heard a familiar sound.
The man in the yellow hat.
Let's see. He heard more quacking.
What?
The gardeners heard it too. Who do you think's quacking?
Duckies.
The ducklings. Then they heard people laughing. Look, said a girl, the ducks have their own island.
What does that mean?
So if you look in the picture, the ducks, the dirt made an island in the middle of the pond, and now the ducks can go on it.
Wait, so George helped them.
That's right. He helped them find a new place to play. Indeed they did. The pile of dirt made an island in the pond, and the mother duck and all her ducklings were waddling right on top. George was sorry he had made such a mess, but the gardeners didn't seem to mind. We were planting more trees and flowers to make the park nicer for people, said the gardeners, but you've made the park nicer for the ducks too. Later, a small crowd gathered at the pond. Would you like to help me feed the ducks? A girl asked George. George was delighted. Soon everyone was enjoying the park more than ever before, including the ducks, who were the happiest of all in their new home. The end. Alexander, in this Curious George book, what was the problem?
The problem was that George tried to drive the truck.
And what happened when he did that?
It dumped into the pond.
And how was the problem solved at the end of the story?
George helped the ducks.
And how did he help them? What did he create?
Somewhere for them to walk, and so they don't have to just swim and they can walk.
That's right. He ended up making an island. Thank you for listening to Curious George. We hope that you enjoyed the story.